Hey ladies, I'm here with Marita Rahlenbeck, and she is a combination of calming, exciting, and inspiring that makes me so happy to call her a friend. She's just a wonderful person to have in your life. And she helps those who she calls the quietly unhappy, helps them find hope again. Does that sound a little bit like you, the quietly unhappy? I think we've all been there before. So this might be a pretty fun talk for you today, if even if you've moved beyond that stage. So Marita uses a couple different ways of approaching health, well-being, and self-care that she'll talk about with her pillars in today's session. But she helps us use those to find change, especially when we're desiring that change, but we don't quite know how to go about it. So I'd love to start today's session with asking you, what are your thoughts on restlessness and why is it so common in women like us?
Well, first, I have to thank you for giving me this opportunity to not only speak with you, but speak with the whole audience. I really I appreciate the opportunity. And what is it that makes us restless? Is that what your question was?
Yeah, like where is this manifesting in us? What makes us restless? What's going on with that? Because that was a word that really struck me. I was like, yeah, restless.
Well, I believe that there is when that happens within us, there is a disconnect between the inner and the outer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, let's just take, for example, that you have a job that you just hate, right?
Yeah.
So that's
we've all been there.
Yeah. But that's an extreme example of the disconnect of the outer world. I have to go do this for whatever your reasons are. And it doesn't work for me. So it causes this restlessness. A lot of times the restlessness is really about a spiritual disconnect where you're not taking enough time, or you haven't even considered taking time to look within or look at the whole idea of spirituality and a higher source, higher power, whatever your word is. And that makes us restless because we are souls within a body, and the soul is wishing to express itself, and it's in the confines of us, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times that restlessness is, okay, time's up. You've had enough time to figure this out, and now we're just going to push buttons, and it's going to trigger what we call an awakening. Sometimes the awakening is very subtle, and sometimes it's just like hammered. It could be an unwanted divorce. I wanted the divorce. I didn't want that I wanted it, but I didn't want it, because it dominoes into so many different things.
Right.
That is what triggered my own awakening. Sometimes it could be a health concern where all of a sudden, you never paid attention to anything that we would construe as spiritual.
Right.
But when you're suffering, it brings you to your knees, and you can, this emotion.
Yeah, I mean, it does make us emotional.
It does, because it's real. It's like you literally do this, oh my God.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So ask me another question while I gain my composure.
Oh. You know what? See, emotion is part of really that soul being expressed. And, I found I went to a yoga retreat last year, and over the weekend, I'm a sensitive person, but not like overly emotional. And I found even just sometimes during yoga or during meditation, I had like emotion come up, and it was like my soul was just saying, okay, hello, I'm here.
Yeah, and it felt good, didn't it?
It feels good. I mean, emotion is a beautiful thing. We've talked in a couple other sessions in the summit about feeling your feelings. Like, don't just ignore things. Don't push them down. Feel them, because not only do you need to do that to be able to release them, but you need to do that to find what you need next. And I mean, I think it's part of that awakening you're talking about, just that self-awareness coming into who you are inside too, instead of just this physical person walking around in an environment that she can't control.
Exactly. Because you bring up control, you can only control you.
Yeah, which a lot of us find very upsetting.
Yeah, I can't control anything outside of myself.
Which stinks.
I think when we really accept that, life kind of pivots.
Yeah.
I think.
Is that part of what you feel is moving from that restlessness to that awakening to action, that acceptance?
Well, I think accepting that you have a responsibility to yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think what a lot of us don't realize is that we have choice. Yeah. We're so accustomed to being told what to do and how to do it. And from anywhere, from our schools to our churches, and I don't know about synagogues, but you get the idea. We're told how to do what and how it is to look. And in the awakening process, I was just talking to somebody about this the other day, is that when I first started this whole path, mm-hmm. I come from a Christian tradition where it's very, black and white, and this is how we do life. And the first thing that I kept hearing again and again and again in various ways was, listen to what I'm offering, mm-hmm. take what you want, and leave the rest. And that was at first very disconcerting. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't buy it all. And
we don't learn like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the acceptance of how I get to choose what works for me. So what worked for me 20 years ago may not work for me anymore. But I've evolved, I've changed, I've continued. Once that domino goes down, it doesn't just go, and you're enlightened, like the Buddha.
Ta-da! But Nirvana.
It takes time. That whole path takes time. Okay. And if we're still here on the planet, we're not done.
Yeah. I think that's certainly fair to assume.
Yeah, we're not done if we're still here. So.
What happened to you after you had your awakening? What changed inside you to start moving toward your lifestyle now that is this very, it's very spiritual, but, still grounded. You're not a woo-woo spiritual. You're a grounded spiritual person.
Very much so, yeah.
How did that awakening move into this version of you now?
I think the first thing that really, aside from this isn't working for me, mm-hmm. I'm going to the library and walking out literally probably with 25 books. I should have brought grocery bags and they were all different. So it's clearly now, okay, this isn't working, but now what?
Right.
Right? It's still the mindset of tell me what to do, because I didn't know
Right.
That was the very, very beginning. And then I found Young Living essential oils, mm-hmm. and they changed my life.
Really?
When you think of essential oils or aromatherapy, you think of, I don't know what you think of, but most people think of they smell good, mm-hmm. put some lemon and water, very basic things. Yeah. For me, they represent emotional support, and they resulted in a spiritual evolution. Really? The use of really good, pure oils, mm-hmm. creates an awakening that's all natural, an awakening of the intuitive abilities, of the psychic abilities. Okay. So that's like the foundation of who I am, mm-hmm. And how this all started. And then, that's, you kind of touched on, or I don't even know how we got to that, but so my business is essentially 3 pillars at this juncture. And the first is food and clean eating. The second is aromatherapy and essential oils, and the last is the sacred or the Sacredmundanity. Yeah.
Such a unique mix of those pillars too.
It is, but it so works, and the feedback that I've had is like this, like what you just said. This is so needed, because it takes us to the very basic. I'm not telling you to go sit on the mountaintop and, do whatever for a month.
Because let's get real. I mean, come on.
Let's bring the sacred into the everyday, which is what Sacredmundanity is. And the whole food element really catapulted, I suppose we could use the word catapulted, when I had a brain injury. And that was a little over 4 years ago. So remember I said health? So just kick it up a notch, shall we?
I've had 8 concussions. I hear you.
Yeah. And I couldn't, for a very, very long time, I could not do the normal things that we do in our day-to-day life. I couldn't read and comprehend. I couldn't listen to music. I couldn't be on the computer. 10-minute bites, like a handful of times a day. Very, very little screen time. Whatever, just a long list of things I couldn't do. Right. And the one thing that I could do is be creative. So I literally started painting. And I've always been, I love to cook. I've always been someone who cooks, but I've had so many people tell me, you need to do something with this. Yeah. And it was that recovery. It was during that recovery time that I fully embraced it in a bigger way. And actually that's when this, my course, Nourish Your Way Home, A Delicious Journey Toward God and Food. That's when this all came together, really, because the course is about building the bridge from the kitchen to the altar and how both are related.
So cool. You'll have to tell us more about that, by the way.
Well, that's what I lived, so it's really cool. Do I relish those years of that? No, I'm still dealing actually with the energy of it. I'm working with a myofascia lady. Mm-hmm. Yeah, myofascia. And our sessions recently she says, I'm deep in your brain. She does whatever she's doing, and she's like deep. She can feel this like knot inside my brain. It's crazy.
Yikes.
So now, 4 years later, I'm dealing with the energy of it. Mm-hmm. And it's on what I would call unwinding. And it's not pleasant because as it's unwinding, it's sloughing off stuff, right?
Sure.
So, that's...
So, okay, I have got to know, and I'm sure everybody else is thinking this. Okay, build us this bridge from the kitchen to the altar. Tell us more about this. That's so cool.
Well, what I mean by that is, number one, not coming to food prep from a place of pissiness, of resentment, of, here I go again. I have to I'm hungry and I'm not inspired, or, whatever your story. I hate to cook.
Does that sound familiar? Right? I'm like, I think you've just landed on why I order pizza.
Oh, see, there you go. Well, then just bless the pizza when it arrives at the door. Right. So, the premise of that bridge is really an awareness. So when you eat that pizza, how are you feeling afterward? Was it like super delicious and worth every calorie?
Usually.
I don't know. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Was it whatever you're eating? Was it just like this wonderful experience that you enjoyed everything of it? Or, because I've been to restaurants where whoever's in the kitchen is not even a cook.
Yeah.
They're just an employee throwing food together, and it tastes terrible. It's just like, this may as well be cardboard because it's awful. And then I never go back.
Yeah.
So to really to elevate the food as sacred and to elevate the experience of dining, which is different than eating.
Yes.
To the sacred and the awareness around not only the experience of preparing the food, but eating the food, sharing the food with, whomever you've got gathered. Yeah. And how does it make you want to connect with your God source or your spirit some some foods very much, they make you want to go do that yoga. They make you want to go take that walk and sit under a tree. Other foods, they really you just want to sit in front of the TV and watch Netflix. So, and is that what sometimes that's really appropriate because you're exhausted and that's maybe how you replenish. But overall, right? This is like overall, how does this make you feel for that? And there's a connection. The more connected I am to spirit, maybe the more I want to juice.
Yeah.
The more connected I am to spirit, maybe, I might consider doing a 3-day fast. I don't know what yours is, but the point is that there is a connection, and that awareness is something that I really like to teach my students, because I don't know of any place else that you can have the guidance that I offer.
No, I've never heard this before. I have heard, oh my gosh, mindful eating is everywhere. And that's so much in the moment of eating it. I haven't heard what you're saying of afterwards, that connection. How did it make you feel? Because mindful eating, you tend to hear, oh, okay, so enjoy the food, taste it. What is it? Slow down. What is the surroundings? But we never hear the then what, which sounds like what you're saying with that connection to what did that food do for you? The then what, which is that's, I think, a nice connection to mindful eating, where you, as in dining instead of eating, essentially.
Right. Because most of us eat.
Yeah.
And they're, I was like, oh my God, I'm done already.
Yeah.
It wasn't even in my body.
Right.
Eating.
Or you're in the car, or you're walking, or you're sitting at your desk. Guilty.
Yeah. I try not to do that. I mean, I try to. And when it's really cool, when I'm really on task, is when the table is set and maybe there's a candle or a vase with flowers. It's like, I'm going to have a meal. And even if I'm alone, I'm worth it. I'm worth this kind of care. I remember my parents used to live in Florida when they were alive. And my dad and I went to the beach one morning. I like to go in the morning.
Yeah.
We like to go to a county beach, which opens at 8. And so we'd be there like the first people there, and we'd be home. We'd spend 2.5 hours. And then by the time we got home, it was lunchtime.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what my mom made, but I remember she had a beautiful crystal, like a bowl with water and a rose in there.
Oh.
I commented on that, and she said, well, I did that for you. So,
your mom was on top of it.
Because that was so special. The memory of that is so special. It's like, well, why can't I create that for myself? Or why can't I create that when I have company? Just a little extra touch that isn't the norm.
That's, just thinking about what a beautiful thing that was. I did that for you, where it was an extra thing to enhance the enjoyment of that experience. And that's so cool. Something so simple as that. And you can do that for yourself. I like that you're championing doing that for yourself, not just when you're hosting a dinner party, but the everyday.
Well, because if you look at it from my perspective as this is about the divinity within us, right? So why can't the relationship be me with God?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So why does it do I have to have somebody else here? Why can't I just honor that?
Right.
And that's a mindset or an awareness that I seek to create. There was a student of mine who she had this habit of every night around 9:00 at night, she had to have peanuts. And,
okay.
Well, it's not logical, right? Yeah. So she had this epiphany during the course where somehow, from things that I had said during our time together, she stopped and she said, who is asking this? Right. Who is asking me to eat these peanuts? And this was a habit. It wasn't just
that's a heck of a habit.
Like, she had to have peanuts in the house. And the answer was something like, that practice, if you will, that habit was her way of that frustration of not having enough connection with her. She called it the beloved.
Mm-hmm.
The moment that she had that realization, heard that, peanut eating stopped.
Really?
Crazy.
That's so crazy. I mean, who would think?
That's the awareness. That's the awareness
Right.
piece of, oh, that's why I do this.
Right.
Oh, but now that I know that, I can do this instead.
Right.
Right? If she's wanting, if you know, whoever in the audience is wanting more time with the beloved, with whomever, you know, with yourself, going into meditation and stillness, then do that. Like, that's the answer, not the peanuts or not whatever it else, you know, the popcorn or whatever else you're doing that's getting in the way. Just stop and go and do that. And if it is only 3 minutes, then it's 3 minutes. You know, I have a whole segment in my course on meditation.
Yeah.
And we talked, and I had a guest expert, and her contents in there. She talked about, I don't know, half a dozen types of meditation. And so then you have a whole menu of things that may or may not work for you, but at least you got, go back to the choice. You have choice. Like, oh, you mean meditation doesn't look like this?
Yeah.
Prayer doesn't have to be like this. No, it's for me, I use this example a lot. I find doing dishes very meditative. I
come to mind.
I just might do that. When I was a girl, we used to go to this cabin that literally had a pump. Remember the pumps?
Yeah.
And so you got to pump the water into the sink in the kitchen. And I was like, I get to do dishes.
Oh my gosh.
I love to do dishes.
Because it's something different and fun.
I don't know. But so anyway, so there's things that, you know, you might find meditative that wouldn't be on the list, but that's okay.
Well, you know, we have in multiple sessions in this summit, we've talked about choice, and we've talked about how health doesn't necessarily look like what you're imagining. It doesn't mean you have to go run for exercise, or you have to go to the gym, or you have to meal plan for healthy eating, or you have to meditate in the way that you see on Instagram, or do yoga that way. There's so many ways to be healthy and to practice these things. And like you were saying with choice, we have choice. There are lots of ways to awaken. There are lots of ways to connect your food to your spirit, or even figure out what your spirit means. And I hope that what people are coming away with is this idea that you're talking about, that there's choice. There are lots of different ways that things look like.
Well, that, you know, beautiful. That's a great, just a great point that we've made again. I'll give you an example. This was during my brain injury recovery. So I got hurt in June. And in August, I started going to a yin yoga class.
My favorite, by the way.
It's been something that had been on my radar for, I don't know, but a very long time. And because I couldn't do anything.
Right.
I have to say, I the part of the brain that gets bored was broken. So I wasn't bored. Don't think I wasn't. I wasn't bored. But it was like, well, what, you know, I would literally joke and sit here, and then I would go sit there, and I was like, I'm just changing my view, but I wasn't bored. But at any rate, so this yoga had been on my radar for a very long time, and it's like, well, I'm going to try this. And one of the things I learned was exactly what you just said, that it doesn't have to look like, because this teacher she was great in that, don't look at anybody else, listen to your body. And for those that don't know, yin yoga is a practice of holding a pose for at least 3 minutes.
It's amazing.
As long as 8. So, and I just remember in the beginning, it was like, I would do it and I'd go, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do it. The whole time, the whole pose, the whole 3 minutes. But I would do it on the way out. But the point is that, like, you know, when you go into some poses, and some people are like, they're folded over like a pancake, you know, or a taco, you know, and I'm like, I look like I'm sitting straight up. but she's saying, if you can feel it, you're in it. And I think
exactly
that practice was really good for me, not only to prove that I could do it, because I really thought I couldn't.
Yeah.
But to realize, oh, I can do this pose and look completely different from you, and you're right next door. So again, that just brings in the whole thing of we don't all have to fit in the same way. And we're not all the same. And it's just so, I think, crucial for us to meet ourselves where we're at. We hear a lot of, I'll meet you where you're at, but meet yourself where you're at.
We never hear it about ourselves. You know, what's funny is all of these principles I learned from yin yoga too. It's so funny how apparently it's just universal in yin, where the idea of meeting yourself where you are. I mean, you hear that in yoga, you hear that in other places, but we don't often hear that with ourselves. We hear it with other people, or as health professionals, we hear it with how we should approach our clients, meet them where they are.
Right.
But we never hear about, other than in yin, thanks yin, about meeting ourselves where we are. And you know what? Maybe today you're not in the same place you were yesterday, or maybe you're way farther, or maybe you backtrack again. And that kindness to yourself, being where are you today? Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, where are you today? That's all that matters. And it is a relief when you realize that all that matters is where are you right now, and, go meet up with her right there.
Exactly.
You had talked about the subject of the spiritual, the sacred, Tell us more about that, because I've only just heard of it. I don't really know what it is.
Well, have you heard the phrase "chop wood, carry water"?
Yes, I've heard that.
It's that kind of a premise.
Okay.
Where, and sometimes I say life gets in the way of life. I mean, if I had my way, I wouldn't be on the mountaintop meditating, but I'd be doing way different things during my day.
Yeah.
So the mundanity of our lives is preparing food, is doing the dishes, is cleaning, is doing laundry, bringing the kids to and from school. Right. I think work, if you don't like your work, that could be pretty mundane. There's so many things in our life that could be considered mundane. Right. And by embracing it as sacred, like I'm choosing, right? I'm choosing to be in this relationship with myself or my family or whatever your situation is. And to do the laundry so I have clean sheets is a sacred act, because I get to sleep in a bed with clean sheets. That's just an example. So it's really about embracing the sacred in everyday life. And back in high school, I came across a book called Practicing the Presence of God, written from a very Christian perspective, but it's the same premise. And all these years, I have had that in the back of my mind. And just you're practicing the presence of God. If God was here, right? How would I be? How would I animate? How would I choose if God was here? And that's kind of the whole idea behind the sacred mundanity.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I just think it's hugely important. And there are so many of us, so many of us, who we leave our home and the bulk of who we are stays. Like when we cross that threshold into the office or workplace or, wherever you're going, the real you, we shut down. And I got so weary of seeing that, of the shallow relationships that result as a consequence of that. And that's why I have it as a pillar. It's not just, and that's why I say spirit and sacred mundanity. It's like my relationship with spirit, but with the sacred mundanity piece, then it becomes whole, in my view. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. How can we practice this in our daily lives? Is it something where we need to slow down, or a lot of us, it's kind of hard to slow down. Like there's too much going. There's work, there's kids, there's social life, there's volunteering, there's whatever else you have. How do
Well,
we practice this in
I
that
think
way?
just honestly an awareness, the awareness, like to have the conscious awareness that I am a spiritual being
Mm-hmm.
first, and I get to do this thing called life. And whatever I do, I can do as an act of service.
That's cool.
To come from a collaborative place, like what we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
versus a competitive place.
Yes.
So it's first and foremost, it's an awareness. So if you've never heard the idea of chop wood, carry water, the Sacredmundanity, like I've done all this stuff the last week and now my kitchen's a mess. And it's going to take a whole day to clean it up. I know people that do that. And sometimes I'm guilty of that because I'm really in a groove.
Yeah.
And the consequences, I don't have a system of a discipline of how it would look and be more efficient. But the awareness is the key, that you're not alone. You might live alone, but you're not alone.
Right.
And to bring that more present. And that's something that you do.
Yeah.
And more that you
sounds
do.
Like work,
Pardon me?
Sounds like work.
It doesn't have to be. It could just be an intention.
So if you were to give like the abstract of what we could do when it comes to those 3 pillars of really moving from the quiet unhappiness and the restlessness to that change, to that awakening, to that awareness. If you were to give us just like the brief version, how do we use those 3 pillars if we wanted to do something to start right now? No pressure.
Yeah.
I know.
Cheat sheet. How would you use the 3 pillars? Would I recommend using the 3 pillars?
Yeah, if I wanted to start like right now, let's say like this is a pretty action-oriented crowd here.
Okay.
If we wanted to do something today, right after this video ends, how do we start pulling this type of awareness into our lives to move from that quiet unhappiness? Like, how do we get away from it? What's the first step?
Well, aside from calling me, no.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Yes.
That's kind of a duh.
To create an intention. Well, okay. Or even before that would be like, I think if you're feeling like, oh my God, this sounds so cool, then you've already you're admitting there's maybe not a full-on acceptance, but you're admitting, this sounds interesting. This sounds like a possible solution. That's the first step, is recognizing that. Right? Because that's goes back to your first question of restlessness. Now I've rubbed.
Yeah.
Right? I have tickled that mosquito bite, and they're like, oh, okay.
Okay, I don't want to be restless anymore.
So that's the first thing, is to go with that. I realize that this is whatever it is for you.
Right.
And I need help. That's the first thing. Whether you work with me or not is not the issue. Yeah. The thing it's the awareness, right?
Right.
Oh, okay. I guess what I have been feeling is legitimate. It's not my imagination. There are people like this out there, and there's people out there that can help me.
Yes.
So that's the very first thing, and then the second thing is to create. And I think the word intention is like a little bit overused, but to create, maybe you want to create a desire, create a want, create a goal.
I like that better than intention. I like the idea of a desire, a want.
Like, well, because the desire is already.
Yeah, you already have the desire for the want. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a natural thing that's unfolded as a result of me tickling the mosquito bite, right?
Yeah.
Now you're like, oh, but I want change. So then the next step would be to do some kind of action.
Yeah.
And it might be different for all of you.
It probably is.
The action might be, I got to get rid of X, Y, or Z in my house because I don't want to eat it. It might be, you know what? I'm going to spend 3 minutes a day every morning, and I'm going to try and sit still. Whatever.
Surprisingly hard.
You don't know. I mean, I can't speak for the audience
Right.
as to what that might be for you, but in my opinion, that's the beauty of my courses, because I touch on these things, and then you get to decide where you're at, and then what's the most important thing for you to take action on, and begin that process. And that's how you think of your kids, if you have children, or how kids learn to walk, right? They kind of realize, oh, I don't want to be on my back anymore. I want to flip over, and then they start crawling and that kind of deal. So you might be somewhere in that phase, in those different phases of where you're at, and that's not something that I can tell you in this type of venue,
Right. I like this idea of, okay, so if you feel like out there that you felt the tickle, that you're like, okay, there is something, we all have something that comes to mind that we want to change. We're all reasonably self-aware if we're here at the summit listening to this recording. And taking that small action. I think I am a big proponent of immediate action. I mean, a lot of people aren't like that. I am a let's do this kind of gal. But do something. Take some step toward what is tickling your brain here.
Yeah.
And I think, you've given us lots of ideas. So I wanted to thank you for kind of opening our minds to make some different connections. I mean, this is certainly unusual compared to what we usually hear in, common advice and all that. And I really thank you for being here with us.
Well, I value you acknowledging that, because sometimes I feel like I am the lone voice in the desert, like, oh my God, is anybody hearing me?
Keep screaming. Just keep screaming, because...
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that I don't have to scream so loud with opportunities like this. And I would like to offer the audience, because it is relevant to what we've talked about. I do have a report that's called Unlock the Message of Your Soul. And that could be the action step that you take.
That's a great idea to start there. That's, by the way, everybody, that is linked in the notes right beside the video here. That's an excellent way to start.
It has a lot of suggestions on how you might achieve that unlocking in the terminology, right? The unlocking, like where you're at and what action steps you could take and what they might look like.
Absolutely.
So, it's a perfect thing to offer, and that actually wasn't planned, so that's kind of cool.
Hey, things come up during this. We are just real ladies talking to each other with other real ladies listening. So that's... I think that it's a great idea, clickety click on that link right there, and you can get some ideas. And, also leave some comments if you want to bounce those ideas off of us. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. This was fun. Appreciate it.